sorry, in The Hague, the Netherlands. And so I'm sitting there. And in the other picture, I'm holding a Shiba Inu when I went to visit Japan for a few days. And so I went to a Shiba Inu cafe on the way to the airport. And so that's my last happy memory of Japan right there. But I'm happy to be here with everyone. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to the Latinx Resource Center so they can also introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. So sorry, I just remembered to hit the record. Thank you, Irene, for the reminder. I am Victoria. I'm currently the program coordinator over at the Latinx Resource Center. So first of all, thank you everyone for joining today, and thank you for the Study Abroad Center for collaborating with us today. We really hope that the tips and the presentation today will give you all just really the information and details that you need if you are even slightly interested in studying abroad. I myself did also study abroad in 2018, summer 2018, and it was the Rome program. So it was the same one actually as Irene, just the summer before. And I'm gonna go ahead and pass it over to Fanny.
Hey everyone, thank you guys so much for making time to come into our presentation. My name is Fanny Perez. I am a DPF fellow with the LRC. I'm a first-year student. Also, my pronouns are she, hers, hers. And yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to Karina. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming out today. My name is Karina Rosales. I am a third-year public health major, and I am just helping out. I am an LRC volunteer. I'll pass it back to Irene.
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, for introducing yourselves. So we'll just jump right into it. A lot of y'all may be wondering, I worked so hard to get to UCI. Why would I want to leave? You know, I can always travel in the future. I feel like that's something we hear very often, and it's definitely true. You can travel in the future, but going abroad during your undergraduate career is really a unique opportunity, and you get a lot of benefits, right? So you're still going to be making credit towards your degree or degrees, right? Many of us who have studied abroad are double majors or have minors as well. So, you know, you're still going to be taking classes. That's why it's called studying abroad. And then you have the chance to either learn or improve a new language, right? If you already speak a language, you're a native speaker, you can choose to go to a country where they speak it and take your academic courses in that language. That's something Dalia did and we'll be speaking about later on as well. But you can go somewhere where you don't speak the language and get to learn it, right? By taking classes and your day-to-day interactions. You can also get experience related to your intended career or a new perspective of your academic discipline, right? With like a global twist and a different viewpoint. And you can even go somewhere where you may already have heritage and family roots, right? But on top of all of this, when you study abroad, it's a really great way to give your resume a boost and help you stand out amongst other applicants when you apply to jobs, to graduate school, to different scholarships. It's always something that kind of helps put you like in a new light. It stands out right off the bat. So this is an example of my resume, and I have studied abroad at the top, and below is one of the experiences that I had from studying abroad, which was being an English teaching assistant. So, you know, those are two international experiences that I get to have on my resume and that are really great talking points during interviews when people ask me, you know, to talk about myself and interests. And this photo on the left, kids sitting at the table, those were some of my students in Italy, right? But ultimately, like, employers love seeing you have the skills like cross-cultural competence, language ability, you know, the ability to work with people of diverse backgrounds and flexibility skills. There's data that says that 97% of students that study abroad get a job within 6 months after graduating, compared to 49% of non-study abroad students. So it really goes to show how it is a long-term investment as well. Apart from all of the personal development you'll be doing while you're abroad, international learning, it is a lot of professional development. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Dalia to share some of her benefits from studying abroad, and then maybe we could also ask Victoria.
Yeah, sounds great. Thank you so much, Irene, for passing it to me. So when I also studied abroad in Chile, I got to complete an internship for credit at NGO FEMA. And FEMA stands for Fiscalía del Medio Ambiente. are environmental prosecutors, a non-governmental organization that focused on amplifying the reach of the environmental policies that the Chilean government promised to complete in international discussions, but had ultimately failed to complete back in Chile. And so over the course of 4 months, I completed over 140 hours interning with them as project intern. And so there I learned to better my communication and my problem solving skills. And I also learned to become flexible and adaptable with my schedule and with the projects that I got to be a part of. And so these skills are actually really important for one's like career. I use them now a lot, very often as a peer advisor too. And I'm very thankful I got to practice those skills when I was an intern. And so another benefit I also got was that I'm now actually culturally competent. And so I may not know the the language of the country that I am visiting, but by watching and communicating, like by watching the mannerisms of the people there and mimicking them, I'm able to fully understand and like communicate effectively with the people to get what I want or what I need across to them. So that's something really that's something I'm really happy to have. And I also made many international friendships. So I'm not sure if we're going to talk about that later today about friendships and things like that, but that's actually a benefit that I'm really grateful to have had as well, because even though we are like physically distanced by many, many miles, I'm still able to keep in touch with them through social media and Zoom calls. And so I'm very grateful to the many benefits I got while studying abroad. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Victoria now.
Thank you, Dahlia. So the main thing I think I want to just mention on benefits is really getting out of my comfort zone. I think a lot of people tend to say this when they've studied abroad, but that's really what I feel that I got out of my experience the most, just because it was the first time really. I mean, I was able to study abroad with my twin sister because she went to another UC. So that is part of my experience. But even though it was both of us together, it was still both of our times first, like going outside of the country and really staying for that long. It was only, my program was 6 weeks over the summer. So again, not as long as some people who go for an entire quarter, right? But it was still like a long time to be away from home, away from the country for both of us. And, navigating, like going through the airport and then the airport over there. And then again, we didn't know the language either. So navigating all of that and really having a lot of like first experiences, a lot of things that really made us gain more independence, as well as, like I said, grow out of our comfort zone. So while we were in the country, for example, just having to go to the grocery store, and again, like I said, not knowing the language, and also different things that they do in their grocery stores. So having and experiencing all of that really like allowed me to come back with just a different perspective of myself, but also of how we navigate culture and different things here in the US as well. So along with the things Irene and Dahlia mentioned, that they're really good, I would say, talking points in interviews and networking when you mentioned that you studied abroad. But it's also like there's personal growth there too, I would say.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing, you both. With that, you may be wondering, okay, but like, how does it actually work, right? So there are a lot of different programs. So the most important thing to know is like you have options to find whatever it is works best for you, your interests and your goals. We have locations almost everywhere except for Antarctica. So if you had your heart set on Antarctica, I'm sorry to burst your bubble there, but I'm sure we can still find something that works for you. We have a lot of different program links. So Victoria mentioned she went away for a summer only. Dalia went during the year, different times. And I went for a semester. So, you can go abroad for a summer, a quarter, a semester, or even a whole year. Right. And you can mix and match. Like maybe you can go to one country for fall semester, then another country, or another two for winter quarter and spring quarter. You can definitely mix your location and then your length, right? And then there are different types of programs. There are some that are UC curriculum where you go to a mini extension of the UC and you're only with other UC students. That's the center that Victoria and I were at. But Dalia was actually at like a full university that students from that host country would regularly attend, like an actual equivalent of UCI or another similar university, right? So you can be taking classes with local students or even other international students who are on exchange there. And you have lots of options on where to live as well, depending on the program. You can choose to stay in a dorm, in an apartment, or a homestay. And you really can go anytime after your freshman year, as soon as you have sophomore units, like sophomore standing, and you can even go up to your last quarter as a UCI student, which is also a really great option, for students who maybe postponed it and are reconsidering at the end and not wanting to miss out. Like, you can still make it happen. We definitely just recommend planning early, which we'll definitely get into in a little bit. And, some of you may be worried, like, I don't know if my major is able to go abroad. I've heard that STEM can't, or this and that, but all majors can go abroad. And there are specific types of programs catered for certain majors that might be even more of interest to you specifically. But when you go abroad, you can really do anything. Like, you can take classes that are going to fulfill your major, your minor, or your GEs, or really just classes that interest you, right? And studying abroad is definitely a unique experience that is usually different from UCI depending on where you go. We can go ahead and ask our panelists in a second, like, what their experience taking classes abroad were. But just real quick, this photo on the right, it's a photo of the Trevi Fountain. If y'all recognize it, it's very famous. I always wanted to go ever since I saw it in the Lizzie McGuire movie as well. But the man standing right here is my professor, Professor Paulo. So instead of meeting in the traditional classroom, our professor would have us meet twice a week on site, whether it was in a museum, inside of a church, in front of a monument. Like, we'd be having class twice a week outside for like 2 hours each class. And we were getting to look at exactly what he was teaching us about and really getting to analyze and learn what was in front of us, which was super cool because I learned a lot that I wouldn't have gotten to know on my own had I gone as a tourist. Like, I really was immersed into the environment. So we can go ahead and open it up to Dalia and Victoria if she has anything additional she wants to add after Dalia.
Yeah, thank you, Irene. So like Irene mentioned, you can't fulfill your major requirements or general education requirements. And when I was abroad, I was able to complete both my East Asian regional focus and my issues and institutions functional focus in my international studies major. They recently did change the major. So this is like the older major. Now it's like global studies. So it might be a little bit different than I did what you might be having to do. But I also completed a few general education requirements. And so altogether, I completed about 9 to 10 courses for my degree. So when I was abroad, yes, I was having fun, but my focus and my priority were my studies, were my academic courses. And so I really did focus a lot on that. And it was great to be able to go abroad because my understanding of these topics expanded in ways that I was not able to learn from, like at UCI, right? So I got to learn from new and different perspectives that I would not really get if I had just stayed at UCI. So I'm really grateful for that. Would you like to say anything else, Victoria?
Yes, I think Irene just pretty much mentioned what I was going to say. I also had Professor Paulo who would do the lectures, the classes all in different sites, not always in the classroom. Actually, he preferred doing them on site, like in different locations. And so that's what I was going to mention. But I was able to fulfill GE requirements during my summer program. And I really appreciated how that program had the language courses offered and available. I didn't end up taking this, and I regret it every time I talk about it. I regret not taking it during those weeks because I feel like I could have maybe learned a few more things than I did. I was still able to navigate, get around, learn from my friends who were taking the course, but I still think it would have been helpful to take that one. So I really think it was just really beneficial that they did offer it, even though it was just a 6-week program.
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up, which ties into our next slide. When you go abroad, English is such a widespread language. You're usually able to take your core classes, like, for your major, minor, GEs in English. but you also will have the chance to take a language class if you go to somewhere, you know, where the English is not like the language that they usually speak. So it's a really great experience because it's really intense, because they're trying to teach you as much as possible during the short amount of time you're going to be there. And, you know, it might not seem short, but people who learn a language have been practicing it for years, which is why I still say like it's a short amount of time to learn a new language, but it really pushes you. And this photo on the left is a photo of me with my Italian language class. We met every single day. The first 3 weeks of my program was only Italian language class. So it was Italian from like 9 a.m. till like 2 p.m. And it was really intense and fun. And then after that, for those first 3 weeks, we still had Italian language each day before our other classes, but only for like an hour and a half. And at the end of the quarter, we thanked our professor by taking him a cake. And I just feel like that itself goes to show the difference. I don't imagine any student really taking a cake for their professor here at the end of a quarter. So, you know, it just goes to show like how close we all got as a class with our professor. But when you go abroad, like you don't need to worry if you don't speak a language already, because most programs don't have a language prerequisite. And, you know, you can go without having that experience. And then, you know, you're able to take your classes in English, and then you have the chance to improve or learn a new language, right? You can take your classes in a native language if you already speak it, which is a different experience. I'm sure Dalia can attest to that, you know, taking classes in academic Spanish, if you want to add anything.
Yeah, thank you, Irene. Yeah, so when I was studying abroad in Chile for the full 6 months, my whole semester was in Spanish. And this was actually really difficult for me at first because I was really insecure about my Spanish speaking skills before I went. But in my 6 months, I had expanded not only just like my casual speech, but especially my academic vocabulary, because I was taking university level courses in Spanish. And so like Irene was kind of mentioning about her language program, my program was like that too. So before I could even start the semester, we had 3 weeks from 9 to 2 where we just focused on learning Spanish. So we were divided into like the advanced and the like almost advanced classes. And for this program though, there was a language prerequisite because you were going to be needing the language for your classes. Not all programs are like that, but that one was. And so in those 3 weeks, I actually ended up receiving credit for level 2C in Spanish. And so I hadn't taken any Spanish at UCI. I did take it when I was in high school. I took Spanish 4 and Spanish 5 AP classes, but I hadn't taken any university Spanish. But that 3-week course actually gave me credit for level 2C. And so I don't have to worry about like fulfilling any more language requirements at UCI. And that requirement is actually necessary for the completion of my honors program in my major. And just to add on to what Irene was saying earlier too, is that you don't really need to know the language for most programs. When I went to Korea, I didn't know any of the language. I knew 5 words. I knew yes, no, please, thank you. And hwajangshil, which is actually toilet or bathroom. And so those are the only 5 words I knew going to this new country where where English is not as widespread in the majority of the population. It is with the younger generations, but not with the older. And there again, I learned I was in the intensive language program for Korean. And that was honestly really intense. But by the end of the first month, I was able to communicate so well with so many people. Even if I wasn't able to maintain a whole conversation with complete sentences, I was at least able to understand what they were asking me and able to communicate the main points of what I wanted to talk about. So you can definitely like study in English or in a foreign language when you are abroad.
Perfect. Thank you, Dalia. So with that being said, if all of these things have made you excited, but you know, you're maybe nervous about the cost, we're here to tell you that you can afford it, right? If you can afford or manage at least to study here at UCI, then you can afford or manage to go abroad, because some programs are price, or even less than the cost of attending UCI. And if you go during the academic school year, financial aid goes with you 100% almost, except for work study, since you wouldn't be working on campus. But ultimately, your package will adjust to the total cost of your program, whether that's you being offered more grants, more scholarships, or loans. They're going to meet that additional cost. And then there are a lot of extra scholarships available during the year, especially, which is really good to look out for and take the time to apply. So in this little chart, you can see that a year at UCI is about 34K for 33 weeks of class, right? But in Korea, if you go for a year, it's about 29K and it's an extra 10 weeks of class. So, you know, you really are going on a more affordable program if you go to Korea for a year. But this is just an example, right, of different comparisons just to show that it really is affordable. And you know, the cool thing is that you can take the regular scholarships you would get at UCI, but you have even more to pick from that you can apply to that are specifically for studying abroad. I personally applied to 3 scholarships and I received 2 out of those 3. One provided me $2,000 and I think the other one was like $1,500. And so that just got added onto my package, and my package like covered my housing and tuition directly to the program, and then they direct deposited the rest. So I did like end up taking some money out of my own savings account, but that was just because I didn't really limit myself. I was in the position where I was like, if I want to eat gelato every day, I will eat gelato every day. And I did, right? But like, I didn't limit myself. And, you know, you can definitely set budgets for yourself as well, to make sure you stay within whatever situation you need to be. But with that being said, I'll open it up to Dalia and see for her experience in affording studying abroad.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing, Irene. I'm also very dependent on financial aid. So the program cost adjustments really helped lessen the financial stress on myself and on my family. I actually applied and received the Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship, which helped me pay for all of my meals and travel expenses while I studied abroad in Korea. I really didn't cook at all in South Korea. This is before I knew how to cook or learned how to cook. And it was actually a lot more expensive compared to buying food. On average, like a meal would be around 4 to 5 USD. And so that's really good pricing for the like comparing it to the quantity and the quality of the food. So that scholarship paid for all of that. Like I was there for 4 months and I traveled a lot. A lot of my weekends were spent traveling. And so that scholarship also helped cover those costs where I really didn't really take out much from my own savings account, other than what I had set apart for studying abroad. However, my trip in the Netherlands and in Chile were pricier due to unforeseen events that happened in both exchanges. When I was in Chile, Chile had a social crisis, and I stayed abroad for a while longer after the end of my program in the Netherlands this past summer, which is actually when things closed down due to COVID. So I took out loans, and loans aren't the most favorite option for financing personal experiences. But I believe that both my time in Chile and in the Netherlands were definitely worth it to go a little bit into debt for. So that's how I financed my trips abroad.
And Victoria, I'm not sure if you want to add anything since you did go on a summer program. You might have had a different experience with that as well.
Yeah, I can just add a little bit. So like Dahlia mentioned, I also am very reliant. I was very reliant, is the word reliant, on financial aid. And so one thing that I wanted to really highlight is that there is, I believe there still is, right, study abroad advisor that can go over different like financial aid options right with you, because when I was planning to go abroad, I met with her so many times leading up to my trip, just so that she can help me break everything down. I also met with the financial aid office just to see my different options, just because I think this is a component that a lot of people, this is what stops a lot of people from going, I think, is this aspect, because they're not informed that it could go with you, your package, your aid could follow you, right? As you both mentioned. I did have to take out a small loan just because it was in the summer versus the academic year. And so that's just how it ended up for me. And like I mentioned, it was just really helpful to speak with somebody from the Study Abroad Center and Financial Aid Office in seeing the different options. So I would highly recommend talking to either of those before, if you're thinking about going abroad.
Yes, definitely. We will promote our advising hours, but you know, we have peer advisors who are very like familiar with the financial aid and scholarship process. So, you know, if you go onto our website, we have a tab for financial aid and scholarships where you can read all about it and access links to different scholarship applications. We can also help with put together a strong application, we can proofread your essays and things like that. But the really cool thing is that a lot of scholarships will ask you for similar information, like why are you doing this program? What benefits is it going to give you? And like, how does it tie into you and your background, right? So once you draft like a really good statement, you can pretty much reuse it for other things or copy and paste parts of it. So it is really well worth the time to assemble it once so you have it for the future. But yeah, we definitely are here to help you with that whole process as well. So if you are now sold on this idea, the most important thing is to start planning now, like as early as you can, wherever you happen to be. That way you have more options to pick from, right? So just think about like when is best for you to go, like when do you have more space and flexibility in your schedule, like if you have to take the stat series a certain year, then you can't go that year, but you could go the following year at a certain time, right? So thinking about what's going to be happening in your academic and personal life, but just remember you can go abroad as early as the summer after your freshman year or as late as your final quarter as a UCI student. And this is just like a handy toolkit, so you can like really plan out your whole time at UCI, but that way you can like visualize, okay, I have some space here to go during this quarter, or I can't go until this following quarter, right? Just start planning ahead, really. That way you don't have limited options at the end, like I can only go abroad if I can only fulfill this specific class, right? This way you like save things purposely and with intention for your study abroad trip. And then if you're wondering like how to get started, after you start planning and thinking of when is a good time to go, you can just visit our website, studyabroad.uci.edu, or just Google UCI Study Abroad Center. And then you can click, students up here at the top, and then click the how to study abroad, and then it'll be a timeline. It'll be a timeline that looks like this. And the number one step now is to complete your UCI Abroad profile. So we have a website called UCI Abroad, and you can go on there and just really put what your different interests and goals are. Like if you know certain places you'd like to study abroad at, or what type of classes you're trying to take. And that way you can get customized recommendations and emails on things to check out. It won't be excessive, but it's definitely a good way that you can ensure you receive information and deadline reminders when things are coming up in the future. So that's the first step, but you'll basically be spending most of your time on step 2 your program. And that's why we're here to help you pick your program so you feel supported, and we can show you how to go about it. Because there are different ways to go abroad, but the most popular way will be through the UC system, which we're really familiar with. So we'll definitely show you how to use their website to find a program that stands out to you and works the best for you. But you'll do that like at least almost a year before you want to go. So that ties us into this part, like when to apply. The deadlines vary depending on your program, but usually you apply about half a year in advance at least. So as an example, if you wanted to study abroad this upcoming fall quarter 2021, then you were applying back in winter quarter, right? But if you're wanting to go next winter quarter or next spring quarter in 2022, you'll be applying this spring quarter. So it is at least half a year, almost a full year in advance if you're looking ahead to spring. So just to think, at least to visit us and start the process of looking for programs and identifying the deadlines for your programs at least a year in advance, right? But you don't need to worry too much about it. It's not like applying to college all over again. Most programs are not competitive as long as you meet the program's requirements, which are very minimal in my opinion. It's usually just like certain GPA. Sometimes, like Dalia mentioned, you do need to have a little bit of experience with that language if you're going to take your core academic classes in that language, but usually not, right? But as long as you meet those requirements and you submit your application by the deadline, you'll most likely be accepted into the program of your choice. And something else to note that people ask a lot is can I apply to more than one program at once? And you can only apply to one program per term. So you can't like say, oh, I really have these top two, I'll just apply to both and see which one I get into and then decide. You can't. Unfortunately, you can only apply to the one you want to do the most. So be strategic and selective, and just know that as long as you meet requirements and you submit your apps on time, you should be fine. And once again, if you have any questions at any point, feel free to drop them in the chat as things come up. And finally, we really are here to support you in any way that we can. This is our peer advisor team from last year, and we have just as good peer advisors this year, including Dalia and me. So, come visit us. We're meeting via Zoom Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. And you get to book a full 30-minute advising appointment so we can fill that time up with you with any questions you may have, whether it's looking for a program or about our personal experiences, things like that. And all you have to do is go onto our website and then visit the contact us page for an appointment, and we'll be more than happy to talk to you. And if anyone has any questions right now, we'll definitely open it up. Y'all can type it in the chat or, unmute yourself as well.
Yeah, and while we wait, I also wanted to touch base a little bit on the academic planning worksheet. So it's basically laid out for 4 years. So some students might consider like, oh, I can only study abroad in my 4-year plan. But if you really want to, you can also stay for a 5th year or a 6th year, however many years you're going to stay at UCI. You can study abroad up until the last quarter of that year. So if you stay for a 5th year or 6th year, you're still able to study abroad. So please don't feel intimidated that you have to continue, like you have to graduate in 4 years. If that is something that concerns you, then you can definitely come in and we can work with you to how to like plan that so you can definitely graduate in 4 years and study abroad. But if you're also thinking like, oh, I can't really do it, I can't fit it in my 4 years, you can try fitting it in a 5th year or 6th year. So do keep that in mind.
Yes, great point, Dalia. When I studied abroad, there was people who had basically graduated in June, like they had already done their ceremony, but they were abroad that fall with me as like their final quarter. So they extended it to a 5th year, but only did the fall quarter abroad. So that's also something you can consider if you're like, short on time. Yeah, and we got a great question by Yaneli in the chat asking, while you were studying abroad, were you also paying for housing here at UCI due to leasing and such? That's a great question that comes up a lot. And the answer is a little complicated because it depends on each person's situation, right? That's how they get us here with the housing. You have to sign leases most of the time, but you can definitely have people sublease if that is something you do. That's what I did. I had already like re-signed my lease, and I just had somebody stay in my apartment in my spot in my triple for the fall semester that I was abroad, and it worked out perfectly. I'm not sure if Valia or Victoria have like personal experiences to share.
Yeah, I also did something similar to Irene where I subleased my spot in the fall while I was studying abroad in South Korea. However, I definitely recommend looking through the resources for subleasing and definitely finding the legal procedures to sublease, because we just kind of did it like through an agreement amongst the both of us. And in the fall, we had some problems with her paying the rent. And so I would prefer students avoid such problems if you just like figured out how to sublease through the leasing community you are in, because they can help you with that. I was unaware that they could help me with that, and when I did find out, it was too late because some of my roommates had already moved out, and so they did not want to come back to kind of help me with that. So do keep that in mind, that there are legal procedures as well that you can do to kind of like remove some more concerns that you may have if you are abroad.
Yeah, and then also you have the option to not sign a lease and find somewhere where you're subleasing. So like I know some people, like if you know someone who's gonna go abroad, you can like swap places, right? Like you are abroad for the fall and then you just need housing for winter and spring. So you switch, you can work it out in different ways. And there are a lot of like Facebook and student pages to sort that sort of like situation out. We got another question in the chat, which is another great question. If some students have CalFresh benefits from the Fresh Hub, would studying abroad affect their eligibility status? I don't foresee that happening. You know, you probably just wouldn't have the benefits for the certain time you're abroad. And I think that would be okay as long as you um, like communicate, because I know after a certain amount of time you need to like basically supplement your documents again to like show your income status. So I don't see it. It depends how long you're going to go abroad, right? Because if you're only studying abroad for a short amount of time, they probably will not like get to see that you're not here, right? So it will be unaffected. But if you're away for a longer period of amount of time, they might just like you can put it on pause or something like that. And you know, definitely speaking to the CalFresh representatives at the Fresh Hub who are really knowledgeable on the subject and might have advice like, yeah, just leave it. You don't need to declare that you're leaving, or you know, you do need to put it on pause, that type of thing. But I know Fresh Hub is really useful with that, and CalFresh is pretty understanding as long as you're, you know, like providing the documents necessary. And then Gabriella asked, what is the process for applying to aid for summer programs? Is that a separate app? Good question. It's not a separate application per se, because the Study Abroad Center and UCAP will let the Office of Financial Aid know that you're going to be abroad for the summer. So, you know, it's basically kind of like how it works for summer aid, but you might need to like, you know, do that summer aid process that you would do for summer session here. So I don't want to give you the incorrect information. I don't think it's anything separate per se, but because the Study Abroad Center like lets the financial aid office know you're going abroad, but you can definitely make an appointment with us. And whenever you make an appointment, you can always put your question specifically in the box. That way we make sure that it's sent off to the person who will be able to help you best and give you the answer directly. Victoria, I'm not sure if you want to speak about how that part worked for you, if you did have to do a separate aid since you went during the summer.
Yes, so I didn't have to do that. I can't quite remember what entirely the process was for me. But I just remember that it was super helpful to meet with like the person I said from Study Abroad Center, because they helped me with everything. I do think if I would have gone during the year, I would have had to do something separate, something else. I remember her mentioning that. But since when I went during my time, I didn't have to apply for a separate aid.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions?
I had a question. Since like the UC system is on the quarter system instead of the semester system, how does that transfer over?
Yeah, so it depends on the program you go, because there are programs that are quarter only. So it would be the same situation, like you get the same quarter units that your program is offering you to take. But if you go abroad for a semester longer than a quarter, you just get more units. When you're looking at the options, it'll tell you on the academic tab of the program how many units you're going to get. It's already been like calculated for you to know how many units you're gonna get. And does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess I had a follow-up question. Does that mean you come back like midway through spring quarter if you were to go like a winter quarter?
Yeah, great question. It depends. So if you do a winter quarter only program, then it ends when the winter quarter typically ends. But if you're choosing to do a spring semester program, those have differing dates. Some do start during winter quarter. So you would like leave during what winter quarter, but come back at some time during spring quarter. Or sometimes it will start during spring quarter, but it'll go into the summer. So each in your time frame, you can always check like the dates and eligibility tab for programs, and it'll tell you when they run.
Yeah, just to add on to Irene's responses to the first question. when I was abroad, because my units, the units, I was doing semester systems. And so I received more units than what I needed to at UCI. And so I had the option when I was filling out like my courses abroad on my portal to just put the 4 units that I was going to receive, or to put the 4.5, the 9 units I was receiving while I was abroad. And so you could do that too. When I was like in Chile, I got, I think, like 18 units. And when I was in South Korea, I got close to 19 units. And I was just like doing the bare minimum to meet the requirements, like to meet my, the program requirements for a credit count or unit count. And yeah, just like Irene mentioned for the second part, it really just depends on the program. I know some students they might be like, oh, like my program ended in June, I'm just going to go back home. Some students also wish to stay in the countries they are studying abroad in or arrive earlier. And that's something you can figure out for yourself depending on the visa requirements, the financial costs, because a lot of programs do offer dorms or apartments or help with those types of things. And so that help might not be extended to you if you arrive earlier, or if you decide to stay after. So it really is just like dependent on what you want and what you can accomplish. Not accomplish, but you can figure out on your own whether if you want to stay longer than the program ended. And I actually did that for all 3 of my programs. I stayed longer than the program end date.
Thank you, Valia. Any other questions, anyone? That's okay. It doesn't look like it. So I'll go through the next couple of slides. And once again, we can have questions at the very, very end. Definitely recommend following our Instagram and our YouTube. On Instagram, we post all of the events that we're hosting and deadline reminders for different scholarship or program applications. And the YouTube channel has a lot of great informative videos on processes. And if you have a specific identity, being able to hear from other students who share that identity and background and their experience abroad. So definitely recommend giving us a follow and going to our YouTube to get more information. And then also alerting to anyone who maybe already submitted an application to go this summer or next fall. We have a new scholarship available through our office. So just goes to show another example of how there are scholarships out there available for studying abroad. And if you're wanting to, this is also for year-long programs as well for next year. But if you are not ready to go just yet, this is one scholarship to keep your eye out for. If you're wanting to study abroad next winter or spring, don't forget you'll be applying at the end of this spring quarter at the latest, depending on your program. Some deadlines are earlier this spring quarter, but regardless, you will still have this scholarship as a possibility in the fall to apply to. Yeah, so with that being said, we'll pass it over to the LRC.
So a little bit about the LRC. The Latinx Resource Center was founded in 2019. We focus on providing resources and services for the Latinx community on campus. Currently, due to the pandemic, we provide those resources via Zoom and creating workshops for people interested in different topics or resources provided on campus. Also, we have a volunteer program, an internship program with hourly paid internships or admin internships. There's also a campus organization affiliates program. I'm part of the DREAM program fellows. There's also other programs such as the social ecology field study and the SPPS field study. So for my position at the LRC, like I mentioned before, I'm in the DPF fellows by the DREAM Center. I do a little bit of everything. We are a very inclusive program where we can go ahead and reach out to other students at UCI or anyone interested in any resource that's available to them. Also, from my position in the program, I've learned to develop better skills as communicating or my working through the virtual world that everyone has had to face this past year. Also, I've created different workshops on different resources found on campus, such as like the different centers on campus. Also, we've also talked about COVID hardships. I'm also looking to do one on the UC Legal Immigrant Services, with the Dream Center, and I'm gonna go ahead and pass it to Karina or Victoria if they want to talk about the position.
Yes. So thank you, Fanny, for sharing a little bit about the LRC. I'm actually going to go ahead and if you can move it to the next slide, Irene. I'm going to talk a little bit about the upcoming event, our opportunities that we have. So our contact info is up there. Just going to highlight that in case anybody wants to reach out to us for any questions or anything. So the first one here, we have our next, I guess, event workshop is the UC SHIP program, which will be next week. And a few of the interns will be working on that one to kind of highlight, talking all about UC SHIP and how that works. So if you have any questions or kind of confused on how that works, you can attend that workshop and they'll be going over everything that you need to know for that. Then the flyer in the middle is our student staff applications are still open. So we have those 5 positions that are on the flyer there. If you can see, also this flyer is posted on our Instagram if you want to go ahead and take a look there. But those applications will be closing on this coming Sunday. So feel free to apply. Again, email us with any questions if you have questions about a specific position. And then our last flyer there is next week, I believe. Yeah, next week on Friday, we're going to have one of our volunteers kind of do a day in the life takeover on our Instagram and just showing and talking a little bit about her herself, her day in the life, and maybe a little bit about her position in the volunteer program. And then I'm going to pass it over to Karina to wrap it up.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for attending. I just wanted to put a form in the Google form in the chat, if you don't mind. It's an anonymous form just to give us feedback on our workshop. And yes, thank you guys so much for coming. Hope you guys learned a lot. And thank you, Irene and Dalia, for coming out and helping us host this.
And then we'll pass it over to Irene or Dalia if you all want to just say anything else to close it.
Yeah, just thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We hope it was informative and, interesting. We definitely look forward to seeing y'all in advising so we can talk some more and answer any other questions you may have. Thank you all again. Talia, if you wanted to close anything off.
Yeah, just thank you so much, the LRC, for also having